right, guys. Yep, it is time to review Green Arrow, the Longbow Hunters. And Tim, as usual, do you want to get us set up with the credits?
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty easy credits.
Yeah. So the Longbow Hunters, writing and artwork belong to Mike Grell with assists by Lorraine Haynes. So Mike did art and inks and et cetera, et cetera. Colors go to Julia, and I'm going to pronounce her last name wrong, Laquament, I guess. And letters go to that too. Letters go to the ever-talented Ken Bruzenak, and we know that name, gentlemen, from Green Lantern.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
All right. You want me starting off the review, or do you want to?
Go ahead, SK.
Okay. Yeah. So here we go. Green Arrow, the Longbow Hunters. Story came out in 1987, and I think the artwork is very cool, very different looking story. It takes place in 3 books. They're about 47 pages. So we start the story off in Seattle. We find out there's the Seattle slasher, someone who's killing women. So obviously Green Arrow is looking to find out who this is. But we see Green Arrow and a Black Canary. We see them living their life together. They're getting along. They're talking a bit about being old. Well, Green Arrow saying, hey, I believe he said he's 43 now, but he still doesn't feel like he's done. He just feels like he's getting older, and he starts to mention to her about having a family. I'd like to have kids, and she even says our job, it's too dangerous with what we do. We can never have kids because I would not want to leave our kids to be orphans. So Green Arrow continues on. He's searching for this killer who is the Seattle slasher, who's killing more and more as time goes by. Eventually, he finds, as he's doing his research, he finds out that there's this man. He finds him in a tunnel. He finds out that there was a man who was a tunnel rat in the Vietnam War. And for those of you who don't know, they were usually short men. They would go into these little tunnels to find out where the enemy was. And it was very dangerous.
And then sometimes they would crash into each other and then have to fight.
Yeah, to the death. So, a very dangerous job.
Sorry, I love that part in my mind. I don't know why I stuck there.
No problem at all. But eventually, so these two confront each other. Green Arrow stops him, and then we found out that there is more going on with Black Canary. Dina is looking into a connection, just trying to figure out what's going on there. And then as we see these other guys, some of their names, the ones in charge of them are Gregory Osborne and Kyle Magnor. And then one of the guys working for them is suddenly, as Green Arrow stops the Seattle slasher, we see somebody else at the bow and arrow kills one of the men working for Osborne and Magnor. And that is when we are introduced and we meet Shadow.
Mm-hmm.
So we move on to book number 2. Book number 1 was The Hunters. Book number 2 is Dragon Hunt. And in Dragon Hunt, we find out a lot more about Shadow. And we find out about her past, how she was the daughter of someone in the Yakuza. We see how she was trained, how she learned all of her stuff, all of her skills. And then we see more of Dina going more into she's diving deeper into her case. But Oliver is still looking in. He's making sure she's okay. He's like, I need to just let her do what she's doing. But he keeps a little bit of a close eye. And she gets herself in some trouble. And he finds her by going to this bar. I really like the name of the bar. I was going to ask you guys a question. The bar is called My Mother's. Yes. So he finds out where
greatest name ever.
Yes.
Let's go to My Mother's.
Exactly. So, he finds out eventually where she is. He finds her in. It was very surprising to me that she was being horribly tortured. We see her eye is closed. She only has a little bit of a shirt on, and it's unbuttoned. She's pouring blood. And Green Arrow and Shadow jump in to make the rescue. And with that, I don't want to get too far into the story and give all these spoilers, but I think it's a great story. Right off the bat, guys, as soon as I opened it and I looked, I was like, oh, I'm really going to like this one. I can tell it's darker. The artwork is different. It's not your typical comic book, but it's really very story-driven, not too much on the super villains or, out of this world characters, but just a truly story-driven story arc. And I think it's an incredible story. I'm like, oh, I need to read more Green Arrow after this. I'm a huge fan of the story. And I'm like, oh, what do I give the rating? Because right off the bat, I'm like, I'm loving it. And then to me, I think that
I'm going to
Jamie,
call 9.7, Jamie.
I know. I'm
I
praying
know.
over here.
I'm thinking about what you guys I'm thinking about what I should do. If I should give it a 9.7, if I should give it a 10 out of 10, because I think it is just truly an incredible story.
BSK.
It's truly an incredible story. And then I'm like, the ending, I did want to see a little more out of the ending. I would have liked to see, I felt like something was a little bit missing, but right off the bat, I was loving it. So I'm going to pull a Jamie. I'm going to say my head says 9.7 and my heart says 10 out of 10. So with that,
mine was a pettiness. There was a big difference between what you just said and what I'm saying. Mine was a pettiness score of like 5 because it took 5 years for the book to come out. And I'm talking about 3 Jokers. Go check out that episode that we did. So yeah, it wasn't my head and my heart. It was my head and my head.
So 10 out of 10, Sonny?
Oh, you know what? I'm going to say 9.8 because I would have liked a little bit of a bigger ending. So 9.8 on this story is truly a classic. And I do love Green Arrow, the Longbow Hunters, and I can definitely recommend it. And I'm excited to see what you guys have to say about it.
Ooh, I'm getting into this one because I have some fun to talk about. The thing it was missing most for me was my jaw. It was dropped. I love this book from the beginning.
You are such a liar, Jamie.
The whole time we've been telling Tim, you went off the air during the pre-show, and I was like, Sonny, just let you know I love this book, but I'm screwing with Tim.
Every time I ask him before you get on, Sonny, Jamie, what'd you think about it? It's the worst Green Arrow story ever.
I literally told him, like, dude, this was horrible for like it made no sense, and he agreed in some points.
I'm just not gonna ask you anymore.
I made up points, and he's like, yeah, you know what, you got a point there.
I'm just not gonna ask anymore. You're done.
No, Sonny hit the whole story on the head. My favorite part about this whole thing was that we had Shadow finally introduced into it, and we had a concept of her character and what she was and what she could be. And I love the fact that this story paves the way for all the other Green Arrow stories, which, you know,
done.
It really
Jason's
does.
Tim has quit today.
No, it has a lot to do with what's going on in current Green Arrow and past Green Arrow as well. So to sit there and see that, and there's some things I could, like Sonny alluded to, like the ending I thought could have been a little bit better. I like the way it did end, but I felt like there could have been more. I feel like there could have been
talking about like where it was that dead panel and then it went
not
to
the epilogue.
Right.
Yeah, it was that dead panel and then just the epilogue.
That one, yeah.
I like the fact that what do you call it? They had that Diana and Ollie kind of like, well, I want kids, well, I don't, because I don't want them to be orphans. And that kind of stuck with me. And I was like, oh, okay, like that makes the most sense. And then near the end, you know, Oliver kind of gets in. It's like, yeah, I don't want that for us either. Maybe when I give up the superhero thing one day, you know, or she's like, maybe we'll give up the superhero thing one day. He's like, don't knock the superhero thing. He's like, it's great. But overall,
10 out of 10.
I give the writing a 9.
Okay.
And I give the art an 8. So overall 8.5 for me.
Ooh.
I mean, I loved it. I love what happened. I wish the story was a 6-issue series instead of a 3, because I felt like they crammed so much into 3 issues that there was more room to expand.
Right. I would have liked to have seen it go on long. I guess it is not technically not a bad thing when you really want to continue. But I was like, man, it's so quick. But I mean, there
that's
are more
good
stuff.
because
like with
it continues on in New Moon, and Jamie's gonna love that too.
I'm gonna hate it. When it hit issue 2, I was like, how is this end in one more? Like, there's no way it ends in one more. And then I was like, it ends in one more. And then it was like
pages,
forward.
no ads.
Yeah, Austin. Yeah, like I said, the books, all 3 are amazing. One part before we get into yours, Tim, that was pretty interesting. In book 2, I really like how they did a flashback. In comics, I don't see many flashbacks. We see having a flashback about his conversation, you know, about having kids. And if you notice in the one panel, you see that he's naked while having this flashback.
Yeah,
and then he's naked while singing himself happy birthday.
Yeah, he's like, happy birthday to me.
And he's naked.
that was the one thing that
to yourself, you can be naked.
That was one thing that the art kind of dropped for me for, was because of the fact that there was like, okay, the what do you call it? Dinah being held up on the ropes and stuff, and her shirt cut open. Understandable. But we didn't need that throughout the whole book. Like that's what I felt like we got throughout the whole book. Every interaction between Oliver and her was just that. It was like, oh, nudity without nudity.
That she was more
Right.
sex appeal is just
Yeah.
she's a great character mom. Like she doesn't need to just be there. Like she's more than just sex appeal.
Right. You can say that for later issues and fillers.
Well, I mean, like if you look at it, even with her sub story in the books, Jamie, with what you're saying, maybe she was just used more as a plot device than an actual progression of storyline. You know what I mean?
But the plot device is a progression of story.
Well, I mean,
you plant the device to get to the story.
not a character that is a major part of the story. You know what I mean? Because
I get that, but to be that good of a character, to have that kind of stability over the years, and to be used in that such a manner, to me, diminishes that character a little bit for me.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
See, and that goes into my review about this a little bit. Like it's a super adult book.
Watch, Tim gives it a 5.
I give it a 1.5.
I loved it. I give it a 5.5
out of 100. No, it's a super adult book. It's very adult for the times. Like when it came out, this was the era of Watchmen in year 1 and The Dark Knight Returns and things like that. And this was Green Arrow's story during that time period. I mean, the artwork has a very independent feel to it, unlike what other books had for their artwork and things like that were more mainstream, more comic book. This is more independent to me, makes it even better for a mainstream title in a mainstream comic book company. The topics that are dealt with in this book are sensitive topics, even back then, and more so now. And, you know, like rape and assault and et cetera, things like that, and what Dinah goes throughout the course of all 3 books, and drug use and massive violence and all of that stuff. It fits for the story. It's great for the story. It makes for one of the best, if not the best, Green Arrow stories ever written. And I think one of the best attempts at restructuring and reintroducing a character that nobody really cared about at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I give this 10 out of 10 all the way through. This is my 10 out of 10. I think this is an absolutely wonderful story. It's a story that everybody needs to read. And if you're not a Green Arrow fan, when you go into it, you will be after it's over.
Agreed.
And it needs to be said that Longbow Hunters was major inspiration for the Arrow TV show too.
Yeah. So there we go. There you go. Green Arrow, the Longbow Hunters. So we can pretty much all agree that it's a classic, and we could recommend it. Everybody checks it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I loved it. And like I said earlier in the pre-show, I was placing a bid to get more Green Arrow. So it did its job.
Yeah, Sonny. So you do 9.8. Jamie gives it a very solid 8.5, and I give it a 10 out of 10. Great reviews all around.